stop before you shop new. That furious beast of fast, need it now, quick fix, I've got to fit in, I need to look great. Get rid of all that noise, slow down, think about what you already have, what's in existence, and how you can ultimately tap into your creativity, which does wonders for your personal style. Hey loves, and welcome back to my channel. This is Faye, and you are in a place where we talk all things thrift, sustainable fashion, upcycling, reinventing secondhand, or what I like to call opshopulence. So finding the decadence, the opulence, the glamour in things that are perceived old, outdated, cast aside. I believe in the underdog. I also believe in Mother Nature and taking care of the planet. So I try to shop, for the most part, sustainably, mindfully, slow, and with a conscious heart. So if that's your vibe, then you're going to really enjoy it around here. Now, today's video was inspired by a comment that I had recently on the community page, and it was in response to my Halloween costume. Ali wanted to know how I came up with the idea, where did the inspiration come from, how did I put it together? And it made me think that's actually a really good topic to dive into. So there's a few things that go on for me when I'm planning an outfit, and particularly with occasion dressing. I love a dress up. I love any excuse to get my costume on, to get my opshopulence on. I find it really inspiring. I enjoy the challenge to do it sustainably. So today I thought it would be cool to talk about 5 ways to stop before you shop new. How you can slow down, how you can not get whipped up into that furious beast of fast, need it now, quick fix, I've got to go somewhere, I need to buy something new, I've got to fit in, I need to look great. How to help you just get rid of all that noise and think about what you already have, what's in existence, and how you can ultimately tap into your creativity, which does wonders for your personal style. So let's dive in. Okay, tip number 1 to stop before you shop is the holy grail, the nirvana of inspiration. That is Pinterest. So whenever I have an occasion, or I have something that I'm going to, or something that I want to kind of really step it up with my look, this is where I head. Even when I don't have an occasion, I just love exploring. It gives me incredible ideas. Be warned, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole, because it's just inspiration after inspiration. But it gives me so many ideas and so many things to think about. And what it also does is really triggers that part of my brain that makes me think, okay, how can I do this sustainably? Do I already have something like that? So with my Halloween costume, for example, I always like to lean into the idea of high fashion Halloween. I love high fashion. I love designer DNA. I love looking at what the brands look like and what they stand for, and how I can really dive into their aesthetic, but do it in my opshopulence way, in my thrifty, sustainable, second-hand way. And what was interesting about Halloween this year was that I literally left it to the last minute, because I was in Melbourne the week before, very busy with work, and I just didn't have a lot of time to think about it. But I always like to think of a pun. Like last year I did, instead of Scarparelli, I did Scareparelli. I hired, rented a corset and everything else I had in my wardrobe. So this year I wanted to do another kind of pun on a designer, but also think about how I could be creative and still stylish within that too. So I was at work the day before at one of the stores that I work at quite a bit, and I saw this mask on a mannequin, and it instantly made me think about the Maison Margiela show that went viral this year. And I'm going to talk more about this in my second point. But so I thought of that, and particularly the makeup, which was done by the genius that is Pat McGrath. So she did this whole porcelain doll effect on the models' faces, and it just went bananas. It broke the internet. It was just so creative and incredible how she did it. So this mask kind of had that vibe. So it instantly made me think of this show. And then as I was looking around, I also saw this red wig, and I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. It's like a burgundy color, very on trend for this season. And I thought, well, that's cool. I could kind of add that in as well. And I have a little like props department at my work. So I'm fortunate that I can borrow things, but also if ever I get anything costumey, I keep it. So I grabbed those two things, and then I went home, and it wasn't until the morning of Halloween that I had a look in my wardrobe, because I knew, I was like, I've got something, I can make this work. I don't need to buy anything. I've got these two great props. This will be great. I don't need to buy any clothes. And so I dived into my wardrobe, and of course I had this amazing full skirt. I had this amazing corset peplum belt that you've seen before. I had a white Ralph Lauren shirt that I did a DIY on a couple of years ago. I cut the bottom of it and frayed it so it had that kind of effect on it. And the mask like tucked in perfectly to the shirt, and I had my little bag that I'd already customized, and it just all flowed really perfectly. And what was interesting at the event that we went to, I think maybe people thought that I was a performer at this ghost festival or something, because people kept asking for my photo, to have a photo with me. And obviously it was like they had no idea who this random person was behind the mask. It could have been anyone. It could have been someone famous, you know. I could have been Heidi Klum. Just, I think, were drawn to the creativity of it. Maybe some of them knew it was a Margiela nod, but it just was really heartwarming to me, because here I was rocking a completely sustainable fit and everybody loved it. I went off on a tangent with my story, but my point with the Pinterest tip number 1 on ways to stop before you shop, was the day before I also put together a Pinterest board, and there were things on there that really started to trigger the ideas. And then when I saw the mask, my brain was already in creative mode. So it was just like this beautiful kind of flow state of creativity, and it just worked. So I think this is also about trusting yourself, trusting your creativity, trusting that you have enough. And I saw this great video the other day, and that was one of the questions that they were posing, was, when is enough enough? And so I just always really like to challenge myself and think, okay, what can I borrow? In my case, I could borrow some things from work, and then I could lean into what I already had. So for you, what can you borrow from friends, and what do you have in your wardrobe? So do those Pinterest mood boards, get inspired, get the creative juices flowing, and you will be surprised what eventuates. Okay, tip number 2 to stop before you shop is to explore high fashion and educate yourself on fashion history, what I like to call brand DNA. So what does a brand look like? What does Chanel look like? They're famous for the boucle jackets, the chain strap, the padded leather, the CC. So the more that you know about fashion, the more that you educate yourself, the more your mind is attuned. And so when you are thrifting, and when you're on Pinterest, and when you're exploring secondhand fashion, it will trigger ideas for you. You will think, that looks a bit like Dior. Or maybe I've got something in my wardrobe that I could restyle to look like that. I am a massive fashion geek. I find fashion history so fascinating. And when I was working on my Halloween costume this year, it encouraged me to dive even deeper into the history of Maison Margiela and Martin Margiela, who was the man who created the house. And reading about him was fascinating, because he was really ahead of his time. He was very much into upcycling and wearing garments inside out and deconstructing them and all the things that I love and that you see a lot in high fashion now, and particularly in Maison Margiela, who is now creatively directed by John Galliano. And John has really carried that legacy on, that concept of showing the bones of a garment and exposing the inner workings and giving this really unique in process kind of quality to the clothes. And I don't know about you, but I find knowing that kind of thing really interesting. A great resource to educate yourself is the Vogue Runway app. So you can have it on your phone, which I do, and you can also explore it obviously on your computer as well. But it has everything. It has all the shows, and each show has a review, so you can read about the designer inspiration. It has close-up details of the show, of the collection, of each look, each garment. So that's something else I really look at with the high fashion shows. I look at the details because that will give me incredible inspiration as well. I'll look at the way a handbag is embellished, and then that will trigger me to think, ooh, how could I do that? Maybe I could do that with brooches, or maybe I could do that with some embellishment or even broken jewelry. And the other part of the Vogue Runway app that is fantastic is the street style division. So you'll see all the different tabs on their website, and I constantly look at that, particularly when it's fashion month. You see all of the incredible style on the street and the creativity, and that will just ignite my brain and give me so many ideas. Education is power, so definitely dive into the history, the designers, the glorious language of fashion. Tip number 3 to stop before you shop is to dive into what you already have. Get your exploration on, look in your wardrobe, and remind yourself of how much stuff you actually do have. Look at it and think, okay, what could I do with this? How could I reinvent this? Could I wear it in a completely different way? Could I wear it backwards, inside out? Could I wear it off one shoulder? Could I layer it with something else? I love layering skirts. I layer belts. I turn ties into necklaces. I add brooches to them. Could you customize it? Could you embellish it? Could you do some beautiful like handwriting on it to give it a designer aesthetic? You will be surprised how many things you have in your wardrobe, and particularly if you have some great essentials and basics and classic items like a beautiful biker jacket, a white collared shirt, a vest, some suiting, a beautiful black dress. These are all what I like to call fashion fundamentals, and they are the canvas for you to get your Picasso on and create. So have a look at what is already in your wardrobe. You've looked on Pinterest, you've got inspired, you've created some mood boards, you've educated yourself a little bit about some of the designers that might be inspiring you for this look that you're creating, or this aesthetic, or even just an outfit that you want to put together. So with all of that, then you can dive into your wardrobe, see what you have, play dress ups, put some great music on, get creative and get lost in your own little world. It's definitely a form of therapy for me, just to escape into my clothes and my inner child and my inner designer, my inner stylist. She comes out, she plays, she whips up all manner of op-shop villains, and you can do the same. And to embellish on that, that brings me to tip number 4 to stop before you shop, which is, as I said, to dive into that creativity and start to play dress ups. On top of that, what I will do is, as the outfit's kind of unfolding and coming together, I'll take some photos so I have that visual to come back to. And then I will start to think, okay, what could I do to take this even further? So this is where I encourage you to think about DIY and customizing. And you don't need to be an incredible seamstress. There are so many no-sew options that you can dive into. Get yourself a glue gun, get yourself things like a leather punch. You can, change belts. You can add more holes to belts, so you can add trinkets off them. really tap into that creativity. And where we are right now, YouTube is the home of the tutorials. So you will find endless ideas for DIY projects, for things that you can reinvent. And again, as you're going through that process, refer back to your Pinterest board, look more into the DNA of certain designers, and just enjoy that whimsical journey of being creative and seeing what unfolds. For me, it's so much more enjoyable than getting that quick fix, to tell someone that I made this myself, I customized it, I DIY'd, I found it secondhand. It's a story, and it makes me feel really chuffed, really proud of myself that I've done that I've taken the time to slow down and do it more mindfully. And the cool thing about that too is that, especially for occasion dressing, the things that you create, no one else will have, because you've put your original stamp on it. And that to me is really great personal style. And lastly, tip number 5, to stop before you shop. This is where we do get to the shopping part, but we're doing it sustainably, mindfully, slow, and secondhand. So tip number 5 is to explore your local thrift stores. If there are gaps in your wardrobe, if there are things missing in this outfit that you're creating, shop secondhand, go to your local and see what they have. I mean, this Halloween outfit is living proof. I found some great props that I can now keep, which is another thing to add to the list, a bit of a bonus tip, is create your own dress up box, create your own little hub where you've got things that you can go to, whether it be a really interesting collar, or for example, I've cut a ruffle off a top and I've created some really interesting wrist cuffs with it, and very Edwardian, Elizabethan, so I can add that to any shirt, any jacket. Having statement belts, I'm very fortunate my beautiful husband bought me this for a couple of birthdays ago and I treasure it. And so having those things can really elevate, and they're great base items that you can come back to time and time again. I really do believe in buying in investment pieces, especially if they're designer and they're things that you're going to love and cherish. I will have this belt forever. There are so many great portals that you can find them secondhand as well. Vestiaire Collective, The Real, First Dibs. Depending on where you are in the world, looking at Vinted or looking at eBay, looking at Etsy. There's so many portals, Depop, there's so many portals that you can look at to find designer secondhand, but having those elements in your collection is a great way to go, as are brooches, things like ties, really interesting neck pieces, statement pieces. So having those unique items will definitely elevate your looks even further. On top of thrifting, have a look at vintage stores, explore markets. I'm a sucker for a market. Anytime there's a good market on, I'm always looking to see the locally made things, the beautiful artisan culture that you can tap into, people that are doing things differently, slowly, supporting small business. Such a beautiful way to go. So when I do get to the shopping stage, that's what I do. Thrift, secondhand, vintage, statement pieces, investment pieces, artisan, slow, mindful. And of course you can borrow, you can rent, you can swap. There are so many options to slow down, stop before you shop, and when you do shop, do it with our beloved Mother Nature in mind. I hope that helps. I hope it's inspiring. Comment below how you have added more mindfulness to your wardrobe, to your shopping habits, to your consumption habits. We're all here to learn and grow together. Oh, and don't forget, you can check out my book, Opshopulence. She's available globally. You can get her via my website, opshopulence.com. I've also got a shop there of beautiful, reimagined, upcycled thrift, reimagined, reinvented thrift. Lots of beautiful pieces, and I thank you for the support on that so far. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one. Mwah.